You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. And be sure to smash that like button. It is the biggest news of the day, certainly, of the season, and the biggest news that I can remember in, I don't know. If you're just joining us, just about an hour ago, Chris Lowe at ESPN broke the news. Nick Saban is retiring. 28 seasons as a college head coach. He won 292 games, 7 national championships, 6 of them at the University of Alabama. Quite simply, the greatest college football coach that has ever lived is retiring. And I have 2 very polar opposite reactions to this news. One is what many of you saw about an hour ago. We were live on air when the news broke. Russ Mitchell was here, and we were recapping the national championship game and had a lot of things to talk about. And as Russ is talking, I saw Chris Lowe's tweet that Nick Saban was retiring, and my eyes got as big as saucers. You know that cartoon where the eyes go real big and bug out of the cartoon's like head? That's what I looked like. Even though every year we hear the whispers about Nick, and I had someone that I know and trust who texted me, so I told you he was going to retire, that has been telling me all season that this was going to be Nick Saban's last year. I didn't believe it. Why would you? We have the retiring conversation about Nick Saban every year. But my reaction was gigantic eyeballs, stunned, and I'm live on air trying to compose myself. And I said internally, screw it, react. Like this is, react the way you would react. And I did. I screamed and celebrated and spiked that football right there and ran around this studio, and I don't even know what it sounded or looked like, quite honestly. I have no idea. If you were listening or watching at the time, I have no idea how that looked or sounded. But that was organic because LSU has gone through its greatest, most prosperous era in the last quarter century. That is not even debatable. You've won 3 national titles. You played for a 4th. LSU is the only team that has won more national titles during that span than LSU is Alabama. And the only reason it wasn't an even greater era is that man. At the time, the greatest season LSU had ever had in its football history, 2011, its first undefeated season since 1958, a season that saw one of the greatest wins in program history, a game dubbed the game of the century when LSU won 9-6 in overtime against Alabama on their field. That season ended in the most bitter disappointment imaginable. Losing to a team you already beat, to a guy that used to be your coach, on the field in the Superdome just down the road from your home. And not only losing in the most embarrassing fashion possible. January 9th, 2012 is LSU football's D-Day, a day that will live in infamy. Pearl Harbor, I should say. It's the day that we will always remember and associate that date with. The 8 straight losses, starting with the national championship game. The bitter disappointment of constantly, no matter how good you are, constantly looking at him and knowing they're better. And that feeling being magnified because he was yours. He used to wear your colors. That's one part of this. It is the elation of knowing that the greatest obstacle to your success is gone. The single biggest hurdle, the largest boulder in the road, the immovable object, the giant crimson shadow, the unscalable mountain, however you want to phrase it, that obstacle has now been removed. Because I don't care who Alabama hires. It ain't Nick. I don't care who they bring in. The resources they have with facilities, the budget they have with NIL and coaching staff, the success they've had, the brand they've built, all of it. All of it. It doesn't matter because it's not him. And whoever it is will not be him and will not win at the clip he did because he is the greatest college football coach ever. So that's one part of it. The sheer elation of knowing the king is dead. That long crimson nightmare is over. That's not to say Alabama's never going to beat LSU again. Of course they will. And they're probably going to keep being really good in the way that LSU for 20 years after Nick left has still been really good and won championships and beaten Nick. But it's not the same. And you know it's never going to be the same. And that's what Alabama fans are dealing with today. The opposite end of that spectrum. The reality that your bulletproof vest has been removed. That's one side of the spectrum of this story. The conflicting emotions, the elation of Nick being gone. The other side is respect and gratitude. Respect in that we all got to watch, unfortunately for some of us a little too closely, we all got to watch the greatest coach in the history of this sport. I'm not old enough to remember Bear Bryant. Bear Bryant's last season was the year I was born. I don't know about Bud Wilkinson or Newt Rockne. I mean, I can read about him in books. But he was better than all of them. In an era where it was never harder to win, where you had scholarship limitations, where television contracts leveled the playing field, where it wasn't just about going to the school you saw on TV every Saturday because I was only 5. Notre Dame, Texas, Nebraska, USC. Like, that was it. Not no more. It's never been harder to win. They expand regular seasons. They add a conference championship game. They add the BCS, so now you have to win a 1 versus 2. Then they go to a 4-team playoff. It's never been harder to win in college football than it is right now, today. And tomorrow it will be even harder with a 12-team playoff. Every year it gets harder to win. And no matter how the game has adjusted or evolved, he continues to adapt, evolve with it, and do it better than anyone else. And for that, there is immeasurable respect and understanding that Nick Saban is the greatest coach ever. And the gratitude piece. I know I've talked about this before, and I'll talk about it till they put me in the grave. I don't care what LSU football does for the rest of its program's history for as long as I live. It is incapable, I am incapable of loving a team more than the 2003 LSU Tigers. It is not possible. My recollections of LSU football, from my earliest recollections, were disappointment. Sitting in Tiger Stadium in 1994 and watching LSU lose to Southern Miss. I had the runs that night too, by the way. Not that you needed to know that, but it just made it doubly worse. Watching Todd Kinchin catch a Hail Mary at Vanderbilt and be called for offensive pass interference and have it taken off the board. When you think you're finally breaking through and you have a couple of nice seasons and you go to the Indy Bowl under Jerry D, then Lou Tepper happens. The idea of going to Atlanta seemed foreign. The idea of LSU winning a national championship felt like multiplying by a quadrillion. Just make something up because it's not real. That's Michigan, that's Nebraska, that's Florida, Florida State, Miami. That's not LSU. And then Nick came here and told us all, bull bleep, it ain't LSU. Because we got everything all of them got, actually more. We got the best players in the country. We got passionate fans. We got great tradition, an awesome stadium. We got stuff to sell. You just got to believe it. And he came here and made all of us believe. And to this day, I'm not sure there's a moment in my life as a sports fan that is greater than being in the Superdome on Sunday, January the 4th, 2004, with my dad and my brother and Marcus Spears getting that interception to go up 21-7 and knowing there was no way LSU was losing that game because that defense was not giving up a 14-point lead. It wouldn't matter if Jesus Christ were the 11 guys on the other side of the football. Nobody was going to score 14 against that defense with the national championship on the line in that building with a 45-year wait period for a national championship. Smoking a cigar on the ramp, on the dome, on the way out, tears in my eyes. I was a senior at LSU, man. That was my final season as a student at LSU. And I have lived a charmed existence as an LSU football fan because there's a lot of people older than me going, shoot, all you remember is Curly and the end of Archer. I get it. There's a quarter century of disappointment before that you all lived through. And all of that is a faded, distant memory because of him, because of Nick. He did it. He brought LSU to that mountaintop and said, look at the view from up here. Isn't this awesome? Let's stay here. And as a result, that's been our expectation. And Les climbed that mountain. And Ed climbed that mountain. And now hopefully Brian Kelly will do the same. But the expectation is Brian Kelly doing the same. Because Nick set that expectation when he did it back in 2003. So yes, today I am elated, man. As an LSU fan, I could not be more ecstatic at this moment that our long nightmare that we all knew would end eventually, that the day has come because Alabama will never be the same. And that is an incredible erasure of a burden. It's an incredibly enlightening feeling. It's almost out of body. So yes, there is that. And I will celebrate like hell. But there is also respect, admiration, and gratitude for what Nick did when he came to LSU as a young coach leaving West Virginia. As a young coach leaving from West Virginia, leaving Michigan State to come to Baton Rouge. And telling us all and making us all believe that LSU could be more than it was or more than any of us thought it could be. And not just telling us, but doing it and setting this program up to continue to be that for what it's been now for more than 20 years. Nick Saban retiring from the University of Alabama. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.